Hey, what happened?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Let me move my slide. So, thank you for coming to this webinar. I am Pei-Shan Wen. I am Associate Professor at Occupational Therapy Department, in Georgia State University. I'm co-chairing this webinar with Matt Erb. He is a physiotherapist specialized in mind body intervention, and he is unable to come today, but he will watch us live on YouTube. So our speaker today is Susan Ezra. The topic of the webinar is guided imagery. Before we introduce speaker, I would like to ask all attendees to keep your mic mute. We do expect to have about 5 to 10 minutes for discussion at the end of the webinar. So if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box, and we will address as many questions as we can. It is my pleasure to introduce our guest speaker, Susan Ezra. She is a board-certified nurse coach at Holistic Health and Wellness Coaching. Susan's passion has always been to enlighten the healing potential within an individual through the body-mind. For more than 30 years, she has been teaching clients and healthcare professionals to use the power of imagery for healing and health. In 1996, she worked with co-founder to create a certificate program in integrative imagery through Beyond Ordinary Nursing. For 13 years, hundreds of nurses and health professionals were trained and certified in integrative imagery. In 2008, they co-authored the Guided Imagery and Beyond Stories of Healing and Transformation. It's an anthology of stories from clients and students showcasing the powerful application of integrated imagery. She is certified in interactive guided imagery and is certified as a health coach through AHNCC and ICF. Incorporating holistic health coaching and the transformative power of imagery into her practice, she works with clients and groups by phone, video calling, and in person. So we look forward to your talk, Susan, and we will now turn the presentation over to you. Let me set you as a host. Okay, here you go.
Okay, thank you, Pei-Shan and Matt, for this opportunity. And I just noticed on the sign that your Congress that's coming up is the 100th annual. That's amazing that this organization, let me see if I can get it right, American Congress on Rehabilitative Medicine?
Yes, yes. Rehabilitation medicine, yes.
Rehabilitation medicine has been around for 100 years. Wow.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Really, that's very impressive in the scheme of things. So I know a few people on the call already, and I know a lot of people within your organization will probably be watching this later. So I've geared this talk to really everybody, but primarily it's going to be how somebody in rehabilitation medicine may be using guided imagery and the power of imagery. So hopefully it will be useful to everybody, because even though I'll be talking about that, perspective, really what I'm saying can be used by and is used by all of us all the time, everywhere. So take from it what you can glean and use for yourself. Yeah. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen. So Pei Shan, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the discussion, and then we'll have some application, and then we'll do an experiential, and then we'll have some time for questions and particular interests that any of you have. Okay. So empowering the body-mind with the imagination. Imagery really is just a natural thought process. It uses all of the senses. So we have 5 senses, right? Seeing, hearing, smelling, touch, which is really sensing and feeling, and maybe not so commonly in imagery, taste, but we can do the sense of taste in imagery. For instance, many of us are familiar with that idea of having a lemon in your hand. You're slicing that lemon in half, and you take some of those drops of lemon juice and place it on your tongue, and what usually happens. So you can use imagery with the sense of taste. It's also associated with emotions. And the reason why that's really noteworthy is that if imagery has importance to somebody, there's likely the connection with some feeling, happiness, joy, sadness. So we know that we can expect an emotional component often in the imagery process. So imagery is really happening all the time. When we dream, we're in imagery. When you think of a scene in your mind's eye, you're usually visualizing that. When you recall a fond memory, like a childhood memory, something that was really sweet, you're using imagery. When you hear in your head a favorite piece of music, you're using imagery. So we do use it all the time. So, some people say, well, I'm not visual, or I'm not creative, or less often someone will say, I don't use imagery. But in fact, it is just a natural process that we do use. And the more we use it, the more we tap into it, the more we bring it into our experience, definitely the more rich our experience is. Now, we all image, but not all of us image the same way. Most people are visual imagers, majority of the population. So when I say close your eyes and imagine a favorite vacation spot, most people will see. But some people, like me, are what's called kinesthetic, feeling, sensing imagers. And I've been doing this for many decades now. And to this day, I still don't see in my imagery. I feel, sense, and I'm very somatic. So my body, that's probably a familiar term to rehab people. So I feel things in my body. People also do hear. Musicians or singers are probably very likely bringing in the auditory in their imaging process. So most of us are one sense dominant, visual, kinesthetic, and sometimes auditory might be the third dominant sense. But again, the more we can use all of the senses, the more rich the experience is. Imagery really is the way the right brain thinks. The right brain is the more feminine, creative, expressive side of the two hemispheres that we have. Both are important, and both ideally are in play in our thought process and in balance. So the right brain thinks more in images, pictures, and the whole. Whereas, of course, you know that the left brain is much more logical, linear, problem solving, and individual thoughts. Again, we want to have a balance of both. And truly, the imagery process is the bridge between the conscious mind and whatever you choose to call it, the subconscious, the deeper mind, the unconscious, the levels of our awareness that are not so present unless we use a process like imagery to access them. So imagery is used always in the creative process. That's where it comes from, whether it be in writing or in any kind of art. Developing any new ideas comes from the imagination, comes in the beginning from the right brain. First one imagines, and then creates, and then brings it out to be presented. Now, this is a great photo that one of our colleagues found in the area where she lives. So it's a real picture. Now, we all use imagery, and my very long-term teaching partner will always say, if you know how to worry, you know how to do imagery. And most everybody knows how to worry, and most all of us do worry. And if you think about it, when you worry, you're doing the same process I just described, but in a negative way, because it doesn't feel good. It really doesn't help anything. When we worry, our thoughts are engaged in something negative, usually something that brings up anxiety or fear or distress. And it has a direct physiological effect on the body, negatively. So we want to learn how to be with that natural process, but not stay there, and shift it to a positive way of using the power of our imagination. What's that quote by Mark Twain? Something to the effect that terrible things have happened in my life, most of which I've just imagined. And that's true for many. Okay, there's that. Guided imagery is just using that natural thought process in a therapeutic way to facilitate the power of the imagination for a positive mental effect, potentiate positive outcomes, and to activate innate healing within the mind-body. Now, usually this process is guided by somebody. There's lots and lots of recordings available now. We used to have audio cassettes, then we have CDs, and now we have everything on digitally. So there's lots that you can avail yourself of to listen to on all kinds of different subjects through a guided imagery experience. And what we're going to do later is going to be a guided imagery experience. And usually it's a bit more scripted or directed by the facilitator. And it's absolutely ubiquitous in many areas of healthcare now. So it isn't something that's on the fringe anymore. Guided imagery is really part of integrative medicine, of complementary. It's a complementary therapy. It's very much alive and present and active. So that's what guided imagery is. And I'd like to define what integrative imagery is, which is the way I practice, the modality that I've learned. Another name for it is interactive guided imagery. And it really is a specific way to use guided imagery and requires quite a bit of training and skill to do. And I want to differentiate it just to tell you about it. It takes this guided imagery process, but even to a deeper level, because what we're doing as the imagery guide or the facilitator is helping the individual, the client, elicit and work with their own images, both positive and negatively. And the process is primarily done with a one-on-one. So rather than doing it on a CD or a recording or doing it in a large group, it's really a one-on-one process. And the process is done by having the guided imagery person help the individual bring to mind an image of something, and then directly interacting and engaging with that image. So for instance, an image could be if somebody's dealing with an illness or a medical problem, they could call forth an image that is healing. And that could be anything. And then with the guide's help, the client engaging with this image and actually talking with this image, can actually do that in imagery. That person often can discover some information that is healing for them or that they need in order to heal. And the other thing that really differentiates this process from the general guided imagery is that even though the client is engaged in the imagery process and they're engaged in using the right brain and they're interacting with the image or imagery, they're also talking with and interacting with the guide in a very simple way. And that somehow, by having the guide there with the person, really deepens and activates the process even more. And I think that has to do with the guide being the witness and the holder of the space for the person to work with those deeper levels of their wisdom, of their knowing, and of what needs to be brought to light for them to address. Hope that makes sense. And this process is based on the belief that we have a truly vast inner resource of knowledge and wisdom and intelligence within the body and the mind, our consciousness, our conscious, our subconscious, that the imagery process can help us access. So that's a lot there, but I really did want to bring that in and share that with you. The other thing I want to identify and define is this big word, psychoneuroimmunology. It's also been termed psychoendomneuroimmunology. And if we wanted to really make it a ridiculously long word, we could say psychoendoemotional neuroimmunology. Anyway, enough of all those big words. P&I. Let's just call it P&I. So P&I, by definition, is the study of the interconnection and the intercommunication of the mind, of the brain and the nervous system, CNS, and the immune system, the body's innate defense against external infection and pathogens, and aberrant, abnormal cell division. It's mediated by our own biochemicals, hormones, and importantly, by our emotions. So I bring that in because it's important to know the science that supports this work as not something fantasizing or abstract, but it really is very grounded in science. Psychoneuroimmunology has been around since the early 1970s. The names who really stand out are people like George Solomon, Robert Adler. Much research that you can do if you want to look into psychoneuroimmunology's background and history, and very much still happening in what we're learning about how the brain, the mind, the body communicate and interrelate, and really are one. I'll bring in a quote that we love from the late Gene Achtenberg. Images, indeed, all thoughts, are electrochemical messages that are woven in to the pattern of brain and body. It gives you an idea of how whole it is, not separated. So all of us, all of this is in play at the same time. So I'm hoping you can see that by having one part of ourself addressed, we're addressing all of the parts, the whole. Pause here for a moment, just see what time it is. Okay. All right. So what I'd like to do next is come out of the screen share and talk with you about some ways that you can use imagery very simply in the rehab area. These are ways that you can just fold into the work you're already doing, or have it be actually a separate intervention that you might do with somebody. So we're going to discuss body dialogue, an image of pain and relief, imagery rehearsal, an ideal outcome, and imagery in the moment. So I'm going to come out of here just for a little bit and come back and see you. So body dialogue is based on the concept or the understanding that our body talks to us all the time through symptoms, through sensations. And again, mind and body working together all the time, just by paying attention and interacting with a part of the body can be very illuminating and informative for the person. So for instance, what does the body have to say when there's a headache? So there can definitely be the physiological cause, whether it's a migraine or a tension headache. And I will say here, there is the physiological level of a symptom, but there can also be a metaphoric or a more representative level of the symptom. So you might need to take the ibuprofen for, a tension headache. But how about also looking at closing your eyes and just focusing on the sensation of the tension headache, what it feels like, where it feels present in the head, and then just asking that sensation or that part of the body, what's going on here? What might you be telling me, or what information's here for me? You can also know that a body symptom or sensation can have some emotion in it. There may be stress or worry. And so you might sound a little weird, but you can actually talk with different parts of your body. I use this a lot in working with people dealing with cancer, the part of their body that has the cancer, and dialoguing with that part of the body and supporting that part of the body, because it's the whole body, the whole person that's going through it, and it's the body part. So I'm just trying to give you some different ideas here of how to work. Somebody who's got diabetes, dealing with how to dialogue and work with the pancreas to function better. What does a pancreas need? Well, it certainly might tell the person it needs to have better nutrition and less sugar. Who knows? But there's all kinds of things that can come through this way. So that's one way to use this. When you're in the rehab area or any area of medicine or any area of life, there's bound to be times when somebody's dealing with pain. So just that simple process of calling to mind where the pain is in the body and letting an image form for it and describing it, feeling it, getting to know it a little bit, and then asking for an image of what will relieve it. Again, everybody can do this on their own or, with a healthcare person. So for instance, if somebody's dealing with some digestive issues, acid reflux, or gastric distress of some sort, let's say that we're picking that symptom. So a person may have an image of a fire. It's burning, it's hot, it's red, it's irritated. I would ask the person to just pay attention to that, see what else they're able to receive information about. And then I would ask that person to bring to mind an image of what would relieve that red, fiery, burning sensation. And perhaps they would come in with an image of a soft, warm, blue waterfall to wash out the redness, to put out the fire, to soothe. So that's just an idea. And I will say that people have amazing, creative, unique ideas. They're not my ideas. I don't come up with the image. And what they come up with is just fascinating and usually very powerful and potent. Okay, next would be imagery rehearsal, and then part of that technique would be ideal outcome. We can use this all the time in any aspect of our life. Like if we're preparing to do something, I have to take an exam in July. So I'm doing imagery rehearsal already about going through the steps, doing the studying, retaining the information, and going to the test site. And 4 hours I've got to sit there and take that test. But I'm going to imagine myself successfully passing it. That's my ideal outcome. So we can use this all the time. But particularly in rehab, it's really a great way to use helping the person empower themselves to regain their health and recovery. So whether it be injury of the arm or leg or a stroke or trying to think of some other applications of rehab, whatever it is, if the person's encouraged to participate and be an active role and have an active role in their healing process, what they're doing is in their mind, they're helping their body do what their body's trying to do, which is to repair, recover, and to come back to an optimal level of health. So it's just rehearsing the different part. Maybe it's walking again after a stroke. So feeling the muscles, waking up again, feeling the bones stronger every time the foot is placed on the floor. There's a sensation of strength coming through the foot, up through the leg, whatever it is. And then visualizing and or imaging, like I would not be seeing it, I would be imaging it, I would be sensing it, walking one step at a time, each step getting stronger until an ideal outcome image may be somebody resuming what they used to do, which for me, it would be walking on the path on one of my hiking trails. Another great use of this particular intervention would be in surgery preparation. I love to do that with people. And again, it's simply rehearsing the surgery process with what the person knows, and then imagining a successful outcome, successful surgery, and complete recovery. And it may not go exactly like that, but the more we can imagine how we want something to be, the more likely it's going to go that way. Another example is, in childbirth, we use this process, a whole lot. Okay. And then the other point I want to make sure to bring in is paying attention to use imagery in the moment. And what I mean by that is it's just listening both to ourselves, if we're using this for ourselves, or listening as a practitioner with whoever we're with, patient, client. And when we listen, which is a whole skill in and of itself, we're hearing things on not just the hearing level, but on the intuitive and the deeper level. And I will say, some people really talk and think in images. I don't, but I know a few people who do. And so that's how they experience what's happening for them. And so I would begin as a practitioner to just talk with them as they do in the imagery. Also, you can use it in the moment as far as just asking someone. So they're talking about a challenge they're having, or they're talking about a pain. They're talking about something that they're worried about. They're talking about, I'm feeling really stuck and blocked. So whatever it is, you can just ask yourself or ask the patient client, what's an image that represents that? And for instance, for being stuck or blocked, often somebody will come up with a wall or a block, some kind of barrier. And that is a image that then you can work with and say, okay, so what needs to happen here? I need to be able to leap up over that wall and move forward. Imagine doing that right now. What's so wonderful about this is that imagery is alive and very real. And so by using the imagery process, we can empower ourselves and others to make the changes and the accomplishments we want. I remember one person a long time ago, but the image still really stays with me. She was having a very difficult time in her life, a lot of stress, a lot of distress. And I asked her for an image of how she's feeling. And she said, I feel like a raw egg without a shell. And that still feels so strong in my memory of that. And relating to that feels very vulnerable, very frail, very unprotected. And I just asked her then, okay, so what do you need to do for this raw egg without a shell? What does it need? And so through our session together, what she did is build a container, build something that this raw egg could be supported in. And we spent quite a bit of time on that. And that helped her immensely. So those are just some simple ways that you can incorporate, bring in, and have imagery be active in certainly your life and in the interaction with the people that you're working with. So I see some more people that I know have joined the call, and in a little bit we can have some questions and answers, but also discussion, because I'm sure some people can add quite a bit to this. But let's do this now. We're doing good with time, huh? Hey, Shan? Okay, let's do this. Let's just take another 5 or 10 minutes, and then we can open it up.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, and then do help remind me to go back into the slides just at the end. I have a couple more slides to share. Yeah. Okay, let's just do a little experiential, and everybody can who is familiar with this process can utilize it. And anybody who it's new to, just see how the process works for you. This is going to be a real simple imagery, maybe five minutes or so. But usually what we will do in any imagery process is just take a couple moments to shift into a more relaxed, inner-focused perspective. So we've been in kind of the mental mode and active discussion here. And accessing imagery really is easy to do when we just make that shift into a more inner-focused state. So go ahead and do that. Just get your body comfortable. Let your back be supported. If you want, go ahead and let your eyes close, or you can let your eyes just have a soft gaze downward if that feels more comfortable. And then just go ahead and breathe into your whole body. Just following the movement of your own breath. As the inhale comes in, and the exhale flows out. And just enjoy riding the wave of your breath for a few moments. Letting each breath be an invitation to relax and to focus within yourself. Just enjoying this time in and this space for yourself. There's no work you need to do, there's nothing you need to accomplish, no busyness or no stress or worry. Just being with the breath. Enjoying the gentle flow and rhythm of your own breath, the life force carried on your own breath. Just let your body and mind receive that and whatever benefits it's bringing. Enjoy this time out, this time in for yourself. And then to add to this, to bring in a little imagery, focusing on health for yourself on all levels. Just let an image form that represents the healthy you, your healthy self. And that can be a literal image of you in some way or in some action or posture. Or it could be something more metaphoric, like the bright sun. Just whatever it represents to you, healthy you. Let that image come present in your awareness right now. It's the first thing that comes to mind. An absolutely healthy you, absolute health. And then, whatever that image is, take a few moments and really get to know it. What's special, unique, and really important to you about it? This image of a healthy you. And all that that means. And if you'd like, breathe into it and let it breathe into you, this image. And actually be this image. Bring it into you and become it. Feeling it in your body, your mind, your heart, your breath, your spirit. Take a few more moments with it. And know, if you'd like, you can keep it with you. It's now a part of you. You embody it. And then go ahead and just very gently begin to return your attention to the external environment that you're in. Just let your eyes open, keeping the image of the healthy you with you. Give you a few more moments to return. Sometimes people feel it's useful to write a few words down or to sketch the image that came to them if they want. Yeah. Just very simple, but very important, because an image contains the energy and the essence of what it represents. Okay, all right. Let me just go back to the slides for a moment just to share a couple more things. Okay, I just love this quote and wanted to share it with you. If you can imagine it, you can achieve it. If you can dream it, you can become it. William Arthur Ward was a philosopher of quite a few years ago. And then I did include a few books. Of course, our book, which is really an anthology, a book of stories of our students in our training program and clients, patients that we've worked with, and how imagery has helped in their healing and transformation. But these other two books by Sandra Barrett, this is a great representation of the psychoneuroimmunology process, the cellular process, Secrets of Your Cells. And then Healing and Transformation by Leslie Davenport. That's a great book that can help you use this process for yourself as an individual. And then the websites, Health Journeys is the website with Belruth Napperstack, and has plethora of different guided imagery recordings that you can download on all kinds of subjects. Imagery International is our professional association of imagery practitioners and people who love imagery. And we have an annual conference every October virtually. And then thehealingmind.org is the website of Dr. Marty Rossman, who's my original teacher, and he has great resources there as well. And then if you'd like to know more about my work, or you do have some questions, if you're watching the webinar and you'd like to email me, feel free to do that. If you'd like to know more about training in this field, please contact me. Okay. So I'll turn it over to you, Heishan, and see if
Does anybody have questions? Please, you can unmute yourself, or you wanna to type in the chat box. Either way.
Let's see, one's in the, okay, so yeah, all right. Jay Lee.
I just, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I just want to share that it was so tremendously helpful to mention with guided imagery, the idea of being kinesthetic rather than visual, because I am like so kinesthetic. And I've had trouble in the past with guided imagery because, from my experience, 90% of the time it's always visual. And so I think sometimes that there's something wrong with me that I'm not fully visualizing. But I switched when you did it this time, and I just like I thought about a tension headache that I had a few days ago, and I let myself feel the feelings I was feeling when I had that headache and kind of let myself be with that. And it felt so much more, for lack of a better word, powerful to really that I was really experiencing it in a way that I felt connected to. Whereas with visualization, I feel like it's out there somewhere. So if I could just share, like, it would just be so great if practitioners and rehabilitation people and whatever, if I get PT or whatever, could ask me if I'm kinesthetic or visual, before we even start. That would really be great. So thanks for letting me share that.
Oh, thanks, Jaylee. And of course, I relate to that. It was hard for me, so I started my training and experience in this in the early 90s. And it was hard for me. I felt, like I'm missing out on the real great technicolor, stuff. But over time, I've certainly come to accept that that's how the process works for me and can be just as powerful. Different, quite different, but just as powerful. Yeah, so that's exactly the way you can ask somebody you're working with is so when you think of a favorite vacation spot, do that right now, and do you see it? No, I don't see it. Well, how do you recall it? Because we can't recall something from the past unless we go into the right brain, and so we recall it somehow. It's this little morsel of something in our memory banks. And so however somebody does that, maybe they hear, let's pick Hawaii, because of course my favorite place would be Hawaii. Maybe I'm hearing the trade winds blow through the trees. It's there. You just have to figure out how it's there for the person or you. Kathy.
Hey, hi, Sue. This is so great to be here and to let other people know that I studied with Sue years ago and was part of her program. And it was really very life-changing as far as adding to my ability to help my patients. It was an incredible experience, not only for my patients, but also for me as a practitioner, because there was always some excitement about and curiosity about what's going to emerge from this session. And the solutions or the insights that would come from patients are way beyond anything that I would have been able to just say, well, you ought to do this or you ought to do that. It came from within them, and I think it made their healing much stronger. So it's wonderful to see you again, Sue. And anytime anyone has a chance to work with Sue or to study with her, I highly recommend it. That's it.
Thank you. Great to see you. Wow.
I have a very basic questions. In your 30 years experience, what kind of patient work best with this technique? For instance, is that better for mental health or physical disability? Like which area that works the best?
Great question, and the answer is all.
Okay.
Because again, this is something within each individual. And whether it's a mental level issue or if it's a physical disease or an injury or if it's a life change in somebody's life, if it's a major transition they're going through, if it's something they want to manifest in their life, imagery it's like, to me, the most essential component to include in everything. So really, hey, Shan, to use imagery no matter what's going on in the client and the patient you're working with. It can empower them tremendously. Yeah.
So have it been somebody that it did not work?
Well, I would say not that it didn't work, but I would say one caveat or precaution in using imagery in a therapeutic setting would be if somebody is not mentally stable at the point that you're working with them. For instance, if somebody is in a psychotic state or is having a delusion state, none of us would be qualified. You know, maybe a psychiatrist who has this training would be able to, but that would be counterindicated. But that's so rare and not likely in any area that we're working with. Yeah. Yes, and I do have to acknowledge Terry Reed because she is my co-teacher and best friend, and we've been doing this together for 30 years. So just want to say hi to Terry. Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Helen.
I'd like to make a quick comment. I studied with Sue and Terry, and Kathy was there too. Starting in 1999, and it changed my life in so many ways. I won't go into, but I think one of the things that it acknowledges, and Sue touched on today, is we have this power inside of us, and and I think that's going in with a patient or a new situation, or even with ourselves, knowing that there's something within me that can a power, so to speak, to heal or whatever. I'm actually putting together a course now, and I've been a little stuck, and so I'm in a place working on getting continuing education, and I'm going to do forget what we call it, but the positive outcome, and spend more time with that. And the other thing, and working with patients, often what would come up is they would say, I feel like whatever it might be, or I was in oncology, and someone was talking about the images they used during chemo, and often patients give us an entree into an image, and it's just a beautiful way to kind of take that a little further. I think it's very effective, but I also think patients really know they're heard and acknowledged, and that can be really powerful in building rapport with patients. That's been my experience. So great to see all of you, and thank you.
Yeah, great input, Helen. Yeah.
Is Terry gonna say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to briefly say thank you, Susan Amiga, that I don't tell people this when I work with them, but what has always been amazing is that on a body, mind, spirit level, they get in touch with their wisdom. And I think it's important to know that when people get in touch with their wisdom, their healing happens. And through imagery, they can get into that place relatively easy. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Well said, of course. Yeah. And that's the wisdom of our intelligence, our intuition, our body, our higher self, whatever you choose to call that. Yeah.
Great comments.
Yeah.
So we are about the time to wrap up, but I am thank you, Susan, for the webinar. I think it's very interesting and inspiring, I would say. So thank you for spend your time with us. And the video would be posted in the YouTube if anybody is interested to listen to it in the future.
So how would they access that? Go to your website, or?
Yeah, there will be a link. There will be a link to YouTube website. I mean, it's open to public, so anybody with the link can listen to it.
Uh-huh. So again, would they go to your website, or would they go to just YouTube?
You can actually access through ACRM website, but there's a YouTube link. So we'll send you the link so you can send to whoever is interested.
Okay, great.
All
Okay.
right, thank you so much.
Right. Great. Great to see everybody.
Thank you. It was
Wishes.
amazing.
Thank you
And-
for coming.
Yes, thank you for coming. And
Yeah.
Kelly, hi. Gosh, there's seeing so many great people I know.
It was wonderful, Susan. Thank you so much, Susan.
Gosh, you're great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do I need to give you the host back, or we can just end the call?
You can just end the call.
Okay. All right. Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, Susan. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Good to see everyone.